Hi everyone. So for this week, we were covering proxemics, and you should have read the Eves and Leathers 2007 or 2006. I remember it as 2007, but I have 2006 written down, but it's the second or B in the four Eves and Leathers that we had to read. You were also assigned Grayson and Coventry. I don't remember the year on that one. Don't read that article. I'm going to discuss the very few main points that you need to know for that. As I was rereading it the second time to take notes on it for this week for the video, I realized it didn't pertain as much as I had thought it would. So yeah, don't read that. I'll give you the few highlights you need to know. So let's get back to the Eves and Leathers. Also, I want to take a quick note that if you are in person on campus anywhere, make sure you're staying safe and healthy. I know the vaccine hasn't completely been dispersed yet, so just stay safe and healthy, and we will take it from there. If things change or happen, please, please keep me in the loop about things. With all this weather and snow, it might knock power or internet out for people. Just keep me in the loop. I will work with you any way that I can. All right. I apologize. My boyfriend is doing dishes right now, so you'll probably hear him in the background. All right. So starting with Eves and Leathers, proxemics. Our space and the space that we use and how we decorate it, it communicates. So think about your own room, your own office, your own house, and think about what does that actually communicate? Sorry, my nose itches, right? How do you decorate things? What is your style? What colors do you use? What colors do you wear? We all know that the space that we use and the way we occupy space communicates a lot. But space isn't just communicated strictly by culture. So, American use of space versus Japanese use of space. Um, I've talked about this before because it's the only experience I have traveling outside of the country. But when I was in Japan a couple years ago, it's so funny to see people on the subway. Everybody is in their assigned seat. If um, if it's a packed train, on the subway, we went to a baseball game and there was a packed train. I mean, it was wild. Everybody stands in their lines. They're in just very small spaces. And it's just wild to me because, excuse me, here in America, we take up way more space than we actually need. We take up space for comfort. Um, Sorry, I had a shamrock shake and the milk is just kind of, I don't know, sitting in my throat. I don't like it. But we take up way more space than we need. Part of it's for comfort. Part of it is because maybe we actually need the more space. But think about how you use space. So, open door policies for professors or for your job. Do you have an actual office? Do you have just a desk? Do you have a cubicle? What is that? And how does that communicate differences? Right. So, the higher you are in the company, the bigger your office gets, type thing. Do you have your door open? I know when I'm in office hours, I keep my door open at all times. I make sure that not only is my door open, but the room that my office is housed in, that door stays open when I'm in there. So think about how you use the space. So it's not just, oh, this culture does this and this culture does that. We all have our own personal preferences as well. Delving a little deeper, it's not just objects that we use and we place, it's also us as well. So, how much space do you take up on the couch or on the bus or the subway, right? We all have kind of our assigned little locations. And I'll talk a little bit more about that here in a bit. But I mean, I sit in kind of the middle of our L shaped couch. That is my spot. And then my boyfriend sits on the other side. That's my space. It's weird when he sits where I sit or I sit where he sits, right? Sometimes we wish to make ourselves more distant. Other times we want to be closer, right? So sometimes we purposefully sit further apart. Sometimes we purposefully sit closer. Um, and I'll talk about environment a little bit more, and I've got examples of this. But think about people who stand really close to you. Think about people who stand really far away from you. It might not be anything that you're doing. It might just be, I want to make myself more distant, or I want to make myself seem more close. Okay. So with proxemic environment, this is everything that is physically present to you at the individual or the individual, not at the individual, at any given moment. So we talk about, I say we like I wrote this article, I did not. They talk about space, distance, and territory and how they're actually related terms. So they are different terms. There's three different things, yes, but they're all interrelated. So it's very important because they're not so different and sometimes it's hard to differentiate. So with space, it's more visual. So we talk about fixed feature, semi-fixed, and non-fixed. Fixed features are the permanent arrangements, rooms by function, right? The walls that separate the kitchen from the dining room or the kitchen from the living room. Okay. We can have open concept. My current house I live in is an open concept, right? So I don't have a door leading between each room. It's just an archway. But there are still walls. Those are fixed, they are permanent. The kitchen is always where the kitchen is, the dining room is always the dining room, living room is always the living room. And unless I pay to remodel or try to remodel my house myself, they're always going to be permanent. Okay? Semi fixed is placement of objects in a fixed environment. Okay? So this could be like the couch, the coffee table, the TV. They stay in the same place mostly. They're semi fixed, they're in the permanent fixture of the living room. However, I could change them depending on the shape of the living room, right? So, my house, I'm sorry, I'm talking about my examples. It's all I really have to go on. My house that I currently live in is kind of like a split level. So, you walk in, you can go down the stairs to the basement, or you can go up the stairs to the living room. Because there's those stairs, we have a little like fence, and then the couch is up against the fence on one side of the L and the other side's on the wall. There's not much we can do with this space because we've also got a fireplace in the corner. So there's not much I can do to change that. It's all pretty permanent. But we've changed the coffee table. We had a fish tank. We can change where that goes. We've got a hutch in the corner. We can change where all those things go relatively easily, right? So they're semi fixed because we place them in a certain way. And then non fixed, this is our personal space in the fixed environments, right? So I talked a little bit about I have my spot on the couch, Richard has his. King has a bed that's on the floor, but does he ever use it? No. My dog sits on the couch, lays in my bed. He has his own space. And he moves if he's not in his space. So this is our personal space, right? And I mean, that's how much space you take up as well. So we might sit a cushion apart, Richard and I. King sits right next to me. I don't know. I'm going to see if I can maybe move this so you can see. See, that's my blanket. There's my dog. He's right up next to me. I get no personal space with him. And so how we use space that way matters too. So this is all space and it is visual. Next, we move on to distance. This is how far we are from others. And see, we're already starting to talk about this non-fixed and distance. They're very closely related. This is why we say, yes, they are three separate terms, but they were very related terms. So we talk about them all together. And I'm sure you've seen the chart about the four phases or distances of distance. But I'm just going to go through them very generally. So we have intimate space. This is 0 to 18 inches, right? So a foot and a half away at most. We're not letting a whole lot of people in our intimate space, right? I pick up King and I hug him and I love him and everything's so great. And he's within my personal space. Significant others, parents, grandparents, siblings, nieces, nephews, cousins, best friends, very few people, right? We're not just walking up to strangers every single day and getting really close to them. No matter if it's to hug them or if it's to talk to them, especially not to talk to them. Then you start getting to personal space, and this is 1.5 feet to 4 feet. Okay, so let's see. But yeah, so about 1.5 feet to 4 feet. This is our personal space. So this is where you might be at a normal comfort level, right? So you might actually stay within this personal, how you talk to people, if it's people you know, um, if you're talking to a friend or if you're having dinner, we typically sit between 1.5 feet to 4 feet away. Makes sense. Social is 4 feet to 12 feet. So this might be a social gathering, a group. Uh, um, we go out to the bar, we might stand that far from each other. You go to a restaurant, people might stand that far from you. Currently, this is where our social distancing falls. We're supposed to be 6 feet away or more, right? Maybe you're more comfortable being 6 feet away from people all the time. Totally fine with that. And then finally, we have public. This is 12 or more feet. Um, so think about when your in-person lectures happen, right? If you have any. I know this is for an online program, but think back to when you did have in-person classes as an undergrad or whatever. Um, or like a meeting with your boss, because this is organizational. Let's talk about that. Your boss might stand 12 feet away from you. Maybe he's not standing 12 feet from everybody, or she, could be a she, but that boss is standing 12 feet from you to give you this information. Okay. There is a far phase of public. Thought I was going to sneeze. There's a far phase, and that is 25 or more feet, right? And so if we're standing 25 feet away or more, think about like concerts, right? We stand 25 feet away typically. Um, Unless you paid a lot of money to get front row, you're going to be 25 or more feet away. So we do have a far phase of distance as well. And then finally, with distance, we deal with violations. So people getting too close or standing, I mean, we start getting uncomfortable if they're too far away and they're just looking at us too, right? So violations have high reward or no reward. And what that basically means is with high reward, um, you're reciprocating. So they move closer, you move closer. They get in your personal space, you allow them in your personal space. And it's just one of those that you're not telling them, no, don't get in my personal space. That would be no reward. They get closer and you move away. Or they're in your personal space and you tell them, walk away, right? I've talked about this guy at the pizza place I work at. Um, he likes to stand really close to people, and I don't know why. Like I was typing things into the computer to get my order sent in, and say this hand is me, he was right here, looking over my shoulder because I'm not very tall. I'm like 5'4". He's 6'4", 6'5". I mean, pretty tall. Why? Why are you that close to me? And as a person who doesn't enjoy touch, I really don't want you that close to me, right? So that was a no reward. I entered my sale, I did not say a word to him, and then I walked away. I don't enjoy that. And there's many people who don't. So that's the high reward versus no reward. I don't reciprocate, I don't acknowledge, I move on to something else. So that is distance. And then finally, we're going to talk about territory of those three terms. So territory is laying claim to an individual, or no, laying claim to an area. This area is then controlled by an individual. Okay. So we tend to mark our boundaries. This is mine, at least for the time being. So there are public areas. Sorry about that. Public areas. So people enter these areas freely. So think about student unions, the mountain layer, right? You can come and go as you please. You're able to walk in, get your Chick-fil-A, or Tzatziki's or whatever, and then walk out. That's a public area. Now, you might control your spot in line for the time being, and then you get your food and you leave. We also have home areas, home territory. So, public territory and home territory. This is defined by distinctive markings. Okay. So, if you reserve a seat, they might put up a reserved sign, right? That is distinctive. Your office might have your name on the door. That is your office. Nobody can just freely walk in. Um, During my PhD, my final year of my education, I had to put a note on my door that I didn't want anybody in my office. Don't clean my office. I will clean it myself. Do not step foot in. Don't take the trash out. Nothing. Because things from my office kept coming up missing. And I was really sick of that because that was my territory. And if you've ever had your house or car broken into, you understand it's kind of a threat to you because that's my stuff. Why are you touching my stuff? Right? I'm supposed to feel safe here and I don't. So, home is defined by this marking. Um, if you have an assigned parking space, that placard on your car, as well as the sign in front of the spot. Okay? And then we have interactional territory, and these are informal congregations, right? So going to the bar. I don't own that bar seat, but I'm sitting in it right now. It's mine. Um, I worked at a place in Illinois where we did not have assigned little cubbies. There were people that had chosen their places that they really liked, and you typically just sat somewhere else. But for new people coming in, you didn't know, right? Um, that made that job kind of more informal, right? So I didn't own that cubicle. I said cubby both times. I meant cubicle. Um, but I sat there every day. Think about your assigned seating before the pandemic when you were an undergrad, right? Your name was not physically written on that seat, but that was yours. It was an informal congregation. You would get mad if somebody sat in your seat. And now that we have an assigned seating chart, because of COVID for tracking, um, people are really mad. They don't want to sit in the same seats anymore, which, like, I get. So, with interactional, we also have the use of personal space, which we've talked about. This is the space that you occupy, it's a space around you that you use. There's also stall space. So, bathrooms, phone booth, that's a one person place, right? Unless you are a parent with a child, there really shouldn't be somebody else in the bathroom with you. However, think about when you're out in public and I mean, there's the old adage that women go to the restroom together, right? There's been several times when the line is long and you and your best friend have to go, so you just go in together. But typically, we don't want other people in any sort of stall with us. Turns, structure and functional, right? So it's not really space or territory, or it is territory, it's not really space, sorry. But okay, take your turn, right? You waited in line, you get on the roller coaster. You waited in line, you get your water at the water cooler. Whatever it is, you take your turn because it is yours. You did what you were supposed to, and you get to take your turn. Sheets, this is skin, clothing, right? It's yours. We get really offended when somebody shows up in the same outfit as us because that's my look. I own it. Okay. Possession, objects that we claim. Your cell phones, those are ours. You shouldn't be getting up and using my cell phone. You should not be answering texts. I've had I had a friend, we weren't like super super close, but she used to take my phone and answer my texts all the time. Why? That's not yours, right? So possession, these are objects that we lay claim to. The Chapter also talks about informational and conversational. So having territory of your own information, they're your ideas, your thoughts, and then conversation. It's my conversation. It might be my information that I'm telling you, whether I want to share it or not. Okay. And then we've just got a couple terms I want to go through after. So there's crowding, there's psychological. This is the psychological concept of how many people, right? There could be 12 people in a room. Well, depending on how big the room is, 12 people might not seem like a lot of people. Say we're at a big fancy gala the office is putting on, and 12 of us show up. That might not be a lot of people physically in the room, but maybe you're not used to so many people. And so you think that that is a lot of people, or you're used to more people and you're like, wow, there's like nobody here, right? So it's the um, psychological concept. Density, however, is the physical number of people, right? So we have 12 people here. This building allows for 250 people, right? That is the actual physical number of people that are present or allowed. Then we get into privacy. So this is the control of access to ourself or our group. So you have physical privacy, so making yourself or your group physically inaccessible, right? I shut myself off. I go in my room, I close the door, nobody sees me, nobody hears from me. I don't want any of that. There's social, which is withdraw from social interaction. So this starts getting into physical as well, because maybe you do shut yourself into a room. Um, huh, Sorry, I'm yawning so much. I worked this morning and I worked last night too. I'm just kind of tired. Um, Social interaction is withdrawal from social interaction, or not social interaction, social privacy. So I might be with my significant other or my parents or whoever, but I don't check my phone. I don't want to talk to my friend groups. I don't want to um, deal with any of that, right? So I withdraw from social interaction. You get psychological privacy. This is control over your thoughts and feelings, right? So I can control how I feel. Somebody might have said something to upset me, but they're my feelings. I can keep them private or I can share them with you, right? So many people don't necessarily share their thoughts and feelings, and it's their prerogative, their choice. They can keep it private or not. And then information privacy is just sharing information about yourself, right? Do I want to tell you things about my past? I'm a very open person. I'm very transparent. I've talked about a lot of things in this class that I don't mind if students know. I think it gives you a better insight to me. But I have a lot of students who will tell me certain things and not others. I have other students that tell me nothing. I have other students that tell me everything, right? It's your privacy. What do you want to share about yourself? And then we've got impression management. So this is how you use space for liking and judgments. And similarly to persuasion, so creating favorable or unfavorable judgments, right? So think back to when you were a kid. How you decorated your room was pretty important, right? The things you put in it, the space that it took up, the colors, everything. That mattered, right? And so we use that space to create liking from others or judgments from others. In the same sense, though, we persuade people to create favorable or unfavorable judgments. Okay. They also talk about affiliation, so being similar to another or to be a part of a group, right? All my friends have a couch and a chair in their bedroom, so I put a couch and a chair in my bedroom, right? I'm using space like they are. I want to be part of this group. Privacy, we just talked about, so we like to keep some things private. And violations, so we're either met with liking or disliking. We're either met with, okay, yeah, come closer to me, come talk to me, be my friend, let's be in a relationship, whatever. Or please get away from me. I don't want to be your friend. I don't want to talk to you. I don't want to know anything about you. Okay. As I said, please don't read the Grayson and Coventry article. Basically, it discussed sales approaches, and they found that salespeople typically stand and speak closer than non salespeople. So think about this the next time you're buying a car, buying a house, working with a salesperson of some sort. Watch how they stand, watch how they communicate, and see if it persuades you to buy something more. And they explored the idea of psychological closeness through video chat, right? So couldn't physically be there, but the tactics they might use to create this sense of closeness. And the feeling of being close made the customer actually speak more. The customer actually said more words, and the customer actually spoke longer because they felt close. They felt like they could tell you, I'm not interested in this purchase right now. I can't do this right now. Um, I they just felt comfortable with you to tell you all of these things. Okay? So that's why I said don't read that one. It didn't pertain as much as I thought it did the first time I read it. But those are the highlights from it. If you have any questions, comments, or concerns along the way, please don't hesitate to reach out. Um, have a wonderful week. All right. Bye.